Hello, this is Editor Marina. Just making sure that you know that in the second half of this episode, we talk about all things Resident Evil, the mainline games, the sideline games, and I wanted to give a spoiler warning that there are major spoilers for the entire series. So with that, let's get into the episode.
What are our themes? What's our outline? What do our characters look like? Here's their character sheet, like who they are, what their themes are, maybe like what their voice sounds like. It's this one method of table work that I learned to do when I was acting, which is known as like informational interviewing with a character. Like RE4 killed the quiet moment in horror games by introducing quick time events mid cutscene.
What does it mean to be a narrative designer? Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Quest Markers. On this show, we talk about video games and the people behind them. I'm Marina. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a video game composer, vocalist, sound designer, audio engineer, and your host. And today I am so excited to have Anna with us. Anna is an award-winning freelance video game writer and narrative designer, and we'll get into both of those things, who has worked on titles such as The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, The Foglands, and Bloodlines 2. And today we'll be talking about writing as a discipline in the gaming industry, what it means to be a narrative designer, and since we're both massive Resident Evil girlies, we'll be yapping about that series as well. We can't not.
You
cannot. As always, the episode will be timestamped with the topics we cover. So if you're watching the VOD, feel free to jump around. And if you're here with us on Twitch, we do have emote-only chat for the duration of the recording, but we'll open up for Q&A at the end. And I'm so excited for today's conversation. And before we get into our intro, Anna, or your intro rather, how are you staying hydrated?
How am I staying hydrated?
How are you staying hydrated?
I try to drink a lot of water throughout the day. Just like, I find that I'm more likely to stay hydrated if I just have something near me that I can sip on, you know, rather than being like, oh, I have to like chug a whole lot of water at one time. I find that is better. I think it comes from my voice school days, honestly, because you just kind of have to do that for vocal health. But that's what I like to do. And that's how I stay hydrated.
I love that. I and you're so right too. Like I constantly have at least 2 drinks on my desk, typically like a coffee and a water.
What's that saying? You have 1 drink for hydration,
yes,
1 for fun, and 1 to go fast.
Yeah, 100%. Yes,
the 3 drink strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And you're not supposed to have like any sort of milk, like even I'm vegan, so you're not even supposed to have plant-based milk before you record vocals. Do I break that rule all the time? Yes, it's fine.
I think people are exaggerating that, honestly. Like people are like, oh, no milk on show days, and I'm like,
maybe not like 5 minutes before you're supposed to go on stage or record. But like I will do
breakfast.
that. That's the problem. Like I will do that. So I'm staying hydrated with coffee, but I do have I have some water. Well, there's not a lot in here. I have electrolytes. I'm trying to stay extra hydrated. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's how I'm staying hydrated. Let's get into your introduction. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm so stoked to be here, first of all. My name is Anna C. Webster. I'm a writer, narrative designer for games. I've been freelance like the vast majority of my career, so I'm kind of a permalancer, I guess you could say. I love writing all kinds of video games. I tend to specialize in like RPG, but also in horror and specifically in horror comedy. That is a genre I absolutely adore. So, but I kind of write a little bit of everything. And I feel very fortunate to be in this career, especially like right now while the industry is melting down. I've been writing games for, I think, like 6 years now, which is quite frankly, that's a long time. Like you blink and it just goes by. I'm also a member of United Video Game Workers, CWA, which is the newest direct-to-join union on the block. So I'm a union girly as well. Yeah, that's a bit about me.
Love it. Let's start by talking about your path and how you got into game dev, because I feel like everyone has a different story. And even when there are similarities in people's stories, like there's still different approaches. So I would love to learn about kind of your path getting into game dev.
Yeah, so every game dev really does have like seriously different styles, but writers especially, we have our own like there is no pipeline into games writing. Like sometimes, you know, you go to school, you got a degree, like there's games schools you can even go to now, and writing is just its own animal. So everyone's path is bizarre. Mine, I grew up my entire life basically planning to be a theater performer. So I learned singing, acting, dancing, like everything you can imagine. I'm sure like you're shocked just from my like general demeanor that I was a theater kid. I'm sorry. Okay. But my whole life I wanted to do that. And then there comes a point where when you start to go to college for these things, you typically have to stratify. So sometimes you will go the acting route and you'll get a degree in theater. Other times you'll go to one of the very few musical theater programs in the country. And the other option is the music route. And I was so torn about this. But eventually I decided to go the music route because I have a somewhat unusual voice type. And so I was like, I have more a chance of getting work if I end up going the music route than if I got just a strict theater degree. So I ended up basically going to opera school. I was going to be an opera singer. Okay. That's what I was training for.
Hell yeah.
I'm like soubrette, like very bright character soprano. Like one of my voice teachers was like, oh my gosh, you're going to be the next Christian Chenoweth. And I was like, okay, no pressure or anything. Okay. Yeah, so character sopranos usually just mean you might have a little bit more unusual of a voice type. You wouldn't be playing the like main girly, like the ingenue, but you're usually playing like a fun side character, which is who I'd want to be anyway. So I got to opera school and I realized that I don't like it. When it comes to training like at such a high level and when it comes to performing, it's really brutal. Games people laugh when I tell them that I switched to video games because it was less stressful. But I feel like my fellow performer types are like, nope, you're right. So I'd always really enjoyed video games and I always really enjoyed writing as a hobby. And, you know, my family really encouraged all these various creative opportunities. And so eventually I literally woke up one morning in my tiny, like little dorm room and I bumped my head on the wall, like while I was getting up and it was like, boom. And I was like, I could go get an English degree. And literally I bumped my head and I was like, English degree. So that's what I did. I got an English degree instead. I minored in voice instead of majoring. And then, so I graduated with an English degree. I taught myself how to make video games by modding Fallout 4 of all things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I was like, I know how to write, but I don't know how to make video games. So I learned by modding Fallout 4 and eventually through that, I built up a portfolio and started getting hired to work on projects. So that's my very weird, I was going to be an opera singer and then ended up a modder and now I'm a game dev diatribe. But now I'm here and quite honestly, I do think it's where I was supposed to end up overall. I really do feel like I landed where I should because so much of games is honestly a one-to-one transfer from the performing arts, except it's just on a screen and not on a stage anymore. You know, it's that little bit of difference. Yeah.
I love that. I've also heard, I mean, I was never training to be a professional like performer on stage in that capacity, but I have heard of how absolutely brutal the training is for something like that.
Awful. Like it made me hate singing. And that's like the most evil thing you could do.
I was going to say, like, when it takes your passion and it twists your passion, it's like you kind of wake up and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, I didn't like singing anymore. I was competing with my friends all the time, which I hated because what I love about, you know, theater is that you're telling a story with other people. Games allow us to do that, right? They allow us to work together with people from different disciplines to tell that story. And that's what I loved. Cheers to you if you love it.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I know plenty of folks who also got into dev by modding. There's also like the game jam path as well. Like that's kind of how I stress tested things where I was like, oh, why don't I just like go do a bunch of game jams and you know, see how it goes. And I had a blast. But yeah, I feel like that's not, you know, super uncommon and really cool.
Not at all. Yeah, it's a good way to learn how to make games with often, you know, free open source materials, which are fewer and fewer these days. I feel like.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're a video game writer.
Yes.
I feel, and a narrative designer, and those two things are different. So I would love to maybe
Yes.
start on the writing side. And in
Sure.
particular, I would love to dig into what are some lesser known facts about being a video game writer, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions also about
There are.
like being a composer. So I feel like there are definitely misconceptions about being a writer.
Yeah, I wonder if any of them will overlap.
I wonder.
I'm just curious because
We're about to find out.
I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of misconception, especially on the art, like the art side of video games, you know? Let's see, misconceptions about game writing. I think the largest one is probably just in the process of everything. Because like video games, it's a very opaque industry, right? It's like we're often hidden behind like NDAs and, you know, trade secrets clauses in contracts. So a lot of times this stuff just isn't visible, which creates these misconceptions. But I think one of the largest ones is like that game writers, we like, we show up at the start of production with a full script of the game. And then we just tell everyone like, now build it, because that's, you know, that's often how movies get made, right? So they have the screenplay first and people assume that like, oh, well, you know, the game writer comes up with the idea for the game and like then everyone just built, and like I cannot stress to you that's not the case. A lot of the time we are writing things as things are being designed. A lot of times we are in the room as things are being designed. And unfortunately, a sort of old style within the games industry is like, we design the thing and then we slap the writing on top of it, which is not very good for like ludonarrative, whatever the opposite of dissonance would be. Cohesion, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ideally, these two things should happen at the same time. So I think that's one of them, is just that we are kind of these divas, right? Who have like all this power and like, this is my vision for the game. And I'm like, sure, I'm sure there's some narrative directors out there who are like that, but the average game writer, like we work on a team. We work in a room. It's probably more akin to how TV works rather than movies, because it's like we're in a room, we're working together to tell the story. We assign out little bits like you own this character or you own this region of the map. Those are two really common ways of doing it. So I think a lot of it is the process of it, which makes sense, right? We can't, like, I feel like sometimes when it comes to things like streaming, like people will be like, hey, I'm streaming myself working on my game, but like we can't really do that as writers because we would spoil the game. We'd spoil the story. So we kind of have to work in secret, which kind of creates these issues. But I think that's the biggest one, is just that, yeah, we we show up at the start of a game, already everything's written out, dialogue's done. That's just not it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think that that's what you would bring up, because I'm sure there's so many others. But to your point, like things are being done in tandem all the time. And like I've been on projects where I'm brought in super early and the only thing that I have to go off of in writing music is just concept art. And that's it. Or sometimes I'm brought in when there's like, you know, a little bit of gameplay and some video, or sometimes I'm brought in, there's like, you know, a full demo that I can play and really get a feel for the game, but I'm still working in tandem. Like, and I think it's a misconception maybe that, you know, like a musician will come in and just like, oh, they'll just get to like sit and play the game for several months while they come up with music. Like definitely not.
No.
Like, you know, like on smaller projects, I produce myself if we don't have a producer, if it's like a really small team. And I'll have my spreadsheets and it's like, well, this is the due date. Like I have to come up with something and it has to be done by this due date. So there's time to implement, you know, et cetera. Make sure the sound effects aren't like completely clashing with, you know, what I've written. But yeah, like things are being done in tandem. Totally agree all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm curious though. You were like, that wasn't what I thought you were going to say. What, like, do you have your own thoughts about like, what did you think I was going to bring up? You know?
I thought it was going to be what people typically think it's like being a professional composer, which is like, oh, you just come in and you get to write music and that's it, right? It's like, no, I don't get to just
No.
come in and write whatever I want, right? Like
Yeah,
I
no.
come in, yeah. I mean, I've talked about this on the show before, but I come in and I'll run like a big listening session with whoever I'm reporting to,
Yeah,
and we'll just listen to a ton of music and be like, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. And I leave that document with like very, very detailed notes about like, we don't want this kind of instrumentation because of this, this, and this. We don't want like this because of this, this, this. We do want this because of this. And everything goes
exactly.
back to the player experience, right? Like everything
Mhm.
goes back to how is this going to resonate with the player? Why? And we like really, really get into it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely not like, oh, you just come in and you write whatever you want.
Yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
and like I've spoken with fellow composers who were like, no, the job is feedback. Like quite literally, the job is you submit something and then you
Same with
get
game
feedback on
writing.
it as to whether it works. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought that's what you would bring up. I
Okay,
thought that you would bring
interesting.
up
Well, that's
that
definitely
like you get to
true.
go in and do whatever you want, which
Yeah,
you don't.
not at all.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like writing is, sometimes we have to kind of be reactive to like whatever other departments are doing. It's like, oh, by
Mm,
the way, this feature is different now, or like we've cut this feature, we've cut this area, and it's like, oh my gosh, the story still has to work though. So you have to figure
mhm,
out um, how to adapt through that. Additionally, like it is really true that feedback is part of the job. It's not it isn't just like I write and then turn it in and like it's done. There's a lot of stuff about like documentation, like you mentioned,
mm,
sitting down and being like, what are our themes? What's our outline? What do our characters look like? Here's their character sheet, like who they are, what their themes are, maybe like what their voice sounds like, in both literally in terms of like casting side blurbs, but also um, maybe this character is a little more formal because they're a little more educated, or this character is like a little more like gruff or sarcastic, like those kinds of notes. There's a lot of like, I call it the quote unquote like the boring stuff of writing,
mm,
let's check the style guide. Are we using Oxford commas? Like what
mm,
words are capitalized? What are like, there's a lot of like really nitpicky little stuff. Like I think one of the other biggest misconceptions is that the job is glamorous. And I guess it's true that like being a game writer can be perceived as glamorous, but it's a lot of like staring at spreadsheets at a desk. Like I cannot stress that enough, that like the biggest the biggest thing is just being able to look at the same thing over and over, read it out loud to yourself, make tweaks, make adjustments, and just keep doing that every day for like 4 years until the game is
yeah.
done. It's a lot of that little minutia work. Um, so yeah, that's another misconception. I'm sure
Hmm.
like you probably experienced something similar with like, gotta tweak this little bit here, just
Yeah,
forever.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time mixing. So like when a song is like
Oh yeah.
written, I'll spend a lot of time being like, "Oh, like is the percussion too loud or is it not loud enough?" But you get ear fatigue really quickly. So it's like you have to come up with techniques for yourself to refresh your ears throughout the day because otherwise
It's
you
true.
can't work. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think everything that you're talking about is all in the name of cohesion, right? Because like
Mhm.
the last thing that we want as devs is for someone to play the game and be like, oh, this doesn't really feel like it fits, right? So like all of
Yes.
this is so that the team can work together and can
Mhm.
collaborate and has, a common denominator. So maybe for you, that's a style guide
Mhm.
um to work off of. But it really is all in the name of we need a lot of people to make this thing because it's not easy to make games. It's not easy to make big games.
Nope.
So how do we do that, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, you had previously skeeted about this. I'm I'm
Yes.
I'm calling them skeets. Okay, no one can take that away
It's
from me.
okay.
On
That's the
Blue
official
Sky,
term.
yeah, we don't call them tweets. This is not Twitter. We call them skeets.
Mhm.
You had skeeted about using theater techniques in your character writing, in your dialogue writing,
Yes.
and like talking to your character and asking your
Yeah.
character kind of how they would respond. Can you talk a little bit about that because I found that fascinating?
Sure. So it's this one method of table work that I learned to do when I was acting, which is known as like informational interviewing with a character. So I might sit down with a character in my mind. If I have a task to write a dialogue about a specific topic from a specific character, in my mind, I will sit down with the character and I'll be like, all right, so what do you think about this? what are your thoughts about this thing? And I let the character tell me what they think, and I just write down what they say. I might sort of translate it in my head and write it down so that it like feels more like a cohesive thought. But I try to interview the character so that they tell me what they want. I'm not like a puppet master controlling them, right? Like they are their own thing and they tell me what to write. So one of my favorite things is when I'm interviewing, I'm like, so what do you think about this or this character? Like, what do you think should happen about X or Y or this thing? And I absolutely love when they completely say something I was not expecting. Like I might say, well, you'd probably want this, right? And they're like, no, not at all. Like what? No, actually, I really want this. Or, if you're, close enough to the character intellectually where they're like, I've never told anyone this before, but like secretly, I really want this to happen. And like the characters will tell you. That's kind of the idea, is that the character as a concept will tell you who they are and what they think and what they feel. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, I'm a writer, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm actually making the decisions, like, because I let the characters tell me. So that's a lot of like how I actually do my character work, that I just learned in theater and brought with me to games. And it's been pretty successful so far. I've had a lot of people say a lot of very nice things about my character work. So it works for me. It's a little unusual, but if it works, it works.
I think that's so cool. I'd never heard of that. Like someone using that technique to write video game dialogue. I love it.
Just how it goes.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Can we switch over to narrative design? Can we maybe start by talking about what does it mean to be a narrative designer? Because I feel like
that's a good question.
maybe in the same vein of misconceptions, I feel like there's a misconception that being a writer, a game writer and a narrative designer are the same thing, but they're not the same thing, right? If you're on a smaller team, you might be responsible for both, or maybe in certain situations you might be responsible for both. But
yeah.
Help us all understand, what does it mean to be a narrative designer?
I don't think I'm actually going to be very helpful because because game writing is relatively like in terms of I say it's young. The games industry in general is very young, but I feel like game writing as its own individual discipline in the past like 20-ish years has made like dramatic leaps and bounds. And so we actually don't even really have a standard of like what a game writer and narrative designer is. There's a prolific game writer, Adam Dolan, who at GDC last year gave a talk about writing and narrative design. And he had a slide that was like, what is a narrative designer? And the answer is whatever your current studio says it is, which is so true. Because like I was a narrative designer on Bloodlines too, but that also meant that I did all of my own writing. So like sometimes you will also write as a narrative designer. Sometimes as a game writer, you don't do any of the narrative design and there's a specific narrative designer. So the difference is game writing is like, if I'm sitting down and I'm actually writing a cutscene, I'm writing the dialogue between some characters, I'm writing item descriptions, right? That is like game writing. Narrative design is kind of the mechanics of how it plays out. So a classic example I use for that is like RPGs. Game writing would be when you're talking to an NPC. Narrative design would be, oh, the player has talked to this NPC, so that progresses the plot somewhere else in the map. Or like it's the little things like tracking dialogue variables, tracking the way that story is discovered, the way that it's paced, the way literal events are fired within Unreal or whatever engine you're using. That is a lot of the narrative design side. It's that kind of like technical aspect of literally how the story plays out. There's a lot of overlap between those, but they are different skill sets, as you mentioned. So a lot of times game writers kind of have to be able to do both to a certain degree. And some studios will make game writers do narrative design. Other times narrative designers also have to be game writers. So Adam really nailed it with like, it is whatever your studio says it is. So it really just is up to the individual to figure out, like, what do I really like? What do I want? Do I want to do strictly narrative design? Do I love that technical aspect? And sometimes that's true. Like if you're really into proc gen, like you're really into just getting weird with narrative systems, that's great. Or you just want to write, you just want to focus on the minute to minute dialogue and conversations between characters. That's cool too. I love them both. I do them both. So like I think that they go hand in hand. But everyone's different. So unfortunately, I don't really think that answered your question at all. And I'm so sorry.
No. I think it did. The first thing that came to mind actually was Baldur's Gate 3. And I bring this game up as an example of mastery in narrative design, because to be able to track like this and this and this and this condition has to be true in order for Shadowheart to say this thing at this specific time is truly just utmost craftsmanship in narrative design, given how much information one is managing in a game of that size. So
yeah. That's a good example to use. Yeah, because especially when like RPGs, when they're of that size, like you mentioned, like the ability for the game to like listen for various variables to be called is like, it gets so complicated, y'all. Like, it gets so complicated so fast. Yeah, but that's sort of the difference.
Question, actually, maybe follow-up question there. How involved would you be in some level of QA when there are issues on the narrative design side? I would assume that you would be brought in to meetings at least to have a conversation.
Usually, yes. Especially if I'm doing more of the like narrative design side. Often if QA is like, hey, this conversation isn't triggering properly, it's kind of on me to like, you know, root around in there and figure out what's not going. So as a game writer, like QA is seriously such great allies, because they're going to see stuff before even the player does. So I have utmost respect for our brethren in QA. You all are the backbone of this industry, because if something feels good or something sounds good or a moment is really hitting, like QA is going to tell you. They're going to be like, hey, I just tested this. I loved this. I was really struggling with this one dialogue option. It seems to soft lock it. So yeah, you do have to be somewhat integrated with your QA. If you're a narrative person, befriend your local or your embedded QA person. They will not let you down. They will be your ride or die. Yeah. So we have a good degree of integration with QA.
I mean, hard agree on the QA side. Like games do not get shipped. Just would not get shipped without QA. And QA is like the level of detail that I can just imagine that goes into QA work, and the technical aspect of QA work and testing and being thorough and documenting and collaborating with others to find issues. Like, 100%. Love QA. Big fan QA.
We
if anyone here works in QA, we love you, QA. One last question before we get into Resident Evil.
Okay.
We're both freelancers.
Yes.
To me, that's equal parts exciting and stressful, depending on, what the year looks like. What advice would you have for someone if they came up to you and they were like, hey, I am ready to become a freelancer. I have these and these reasons that I want to do it. What advice would you have? What advice would you have for someone, or maybe what advice would you give to your younger self? You decide kind of which one you want to answer.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, let's see. I think that I genuinely want to be as encouraging as possible. And I know a lot of people are really struggling in the industry right now. So when people come up to me and they say, hey, I'm thinking of doing the freelance thing, I try to see what their specific situation is. So a lot of times, you might want to set up an LLC for tax reasons. Like a lot of it is very granular in terms of what a specific person's situation is looking like. But most of all, I always want to encourage people. there's a lot of realities of the job that are difficult, but my usual answer is like, go for it. See how it goes. Like the worst that could happen is you realize you don't like freelancing. You know, that's like me with opera school. I went, turned out I didn't like it, and I left and I did something else, you know. But then you know that about yourself, and you've done that and you've tried it and you have that experience. Like that in itself is valuable. So in my opinion, like there's not really a way to like lose. My biggest like pieces of advice are like, just make sure that if you're going the LLC route, that you make sure all your stuff is buttoned up, like get your bank business account, like all that kind of boring stuff set up so that you can start actually like invoicing. Or even just like, if you have connections with people, start saying, hey, I'm freelancing now. Like, get posting. I always tell people, I'm like, a lot of my work as a freelancer comes from like posting on the internet. I'm serious. You gotta get posting. But most importantly, like just trust yourself, I think is probably the biggest thing, because I left like working full-time. I didn't leave, actually, I was laid off, but I left the realm of like full-time staff writing because I had a rough experience at my first in-house job, and I was like, well, I'm never letting that happen again, because I realized that like the one thing in this crazy industry that I felt like I could trust and rely on was like my ability to do my job. And sometimes it's really scary to just be like, well, my business is me and my backup plan is me. And that's terrifying. But I really just encourage people, like, follow your gut, trust yourself. You can do that. You can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I do have a video as well on my silly little YouTube channel, which is just my name, about like freelancing 101. If you're interested in that route. And of course, like people can always reach out to me with questions, because like it's crazy out here and we need to look after each other. So
I was going to plug that YouTube video because it's great. But you did it. You did it for me. That's a really beautiful answer. I like the takeaway of trust yourself. Try it, see what happens. You don't know without trying.
You never know. Yeah.
You never know. Never know. LLC is very American specific. So for anyone who's not in the US, like, just
Okay.
make sure that you do the admin. Figure out what the admin work is. Make sure you do the admin.
Yeah.
Hard agree.
Another unglamorous part of the job, right? Yeah. Like, gotta file my paperwork with the government.
Yeah. I feel like what people don't see on the outside looking in, and like just like questions that I get from friends, is like, I feel like I'm so curious actually if this is the case for you, but I feel like my time is separated into 3 different categories. Like category 1, doing the client work.
Yeah.
Category 2, making sure that I have work booked for when, current projects are done. And number 3, admin. And admin is, it's a lot. It's keeping yourself organized. It's doing your books, it's etc. But frequently what people don't account for is those last 2 categories take time, and you're not being paid when you're doing those things. So
it's true. No, 100%. Totally agree. Like, unlike in film and TV, like we don't have agents as freelancers in games. So we're our own promoter. We have to hustle. We have to do our own books. I mean, you can hire someone to do your books, but I don't, because like that's another expense, So I totally agree. Those 3 categories are very, very accurate. And you're right, because you don't get paid for those second 2. That's not even part of the job.
You got to get efficient.
You do. Yeah, you really do.
I'm going to make a hard left turn from this very serious topic.
Let's do it.
Okay, what we're really here to do, I have bamboozled everyone. We are here to talk about Resident Evil.
Facts. Now that we've lulled you in with talk of game.
Absolutely. Bamboozled. We're here to talk about Resident Evil. Anna, right before we hit record, I was telling you how excited I was to talk about how you got into the series.
Yeah.
I'm dying to know, how did you get into the series?
Okay, so my very first Resident Evil game was the OG RE4, because I had an older sibling and they were playing it, and I was like 12. I think. This was a couple of years after it had already come out. And I was like, this looks cool. What is it? And my sibling was like, oh, they're like infected with a virus, you know? And I was like, who's this little man with his emo hair and his silly jacket? And I just kind of latched on to him like a barnacle. And I've been this way ever since. It was the OG RE4 for me that really did it. Like, I've been a Leon Ada truther my entire life. Sorry for any Cleon shippers in the chat. I love them. They're my parents, you know? They raised me. I love them. So that was my journey. I started with RE4, and then you know, just kind of tried to learn everything I could about it from there, and it stuck.
I love that. I feel like 4 was the entryway for so many people.
It was. I feel like it really hit mainstream in the US at that point. I don't know. What about you? What was your first one?
I got into horror super late.
Really?
I only got into RE in 2023.
Really?
And I have played every single game that I could get my hands on at this point, including the sideline games. Like,
oh, true. Mm-hmm.
I have played everything that I possibly could at this point. But it was RE1. Yeah. And my partner was playing it, and I was like, oh, Resident Evil 1. Like, I've always been interested in this game. I'm too scared to play these games. Can I watch you play it? And it was one of those, like, I was having a really bad week, and so it became respite, which is maybe a strange thing to say for a horror game, but I do think that there's a certain respite that you can find in a horror game that I haven't quite been able to find the right language for yet.
Okay.
And yeah, we beat the game in like a day and a half, because it's not that long.
It's a pretty short one.
It's pretty short, but I was enamored. I was like, and we were doing Jill. So it's like you got Barry coming in, who's the best. I was enamored with the whole like bigger narrative of evil corporation trying to make all the money doing terrible
capitalism.
Yeah, totally. I thought that was a fascinating way to start that narrative, to talk about, you know, what I think people from the outside looking in who haven't played them are probably like, oh, that's just a zombie game. Like, no, it's actually so much more than just a zombie game. And also the puzzles, like the gameplay is so fun. I loved it. And then it was like, well, now we need to play every single other game. And I had someone to play 5 and 6 with, you know, played that co-op.
If you can make it through 5,
you can do anything if you can make it through 5.
I just
truly do anything.
Pretend that one didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, you know, Chris is this is a bit of a spoiler for our village, but the fact that Chris punched a boulder and then that gets brought up in RE8 was so funny to me.
I mean,
I was like, it's canon.
It's canon. He punched that boulder. Like, yeah.
Sheva, hurry. God. Just spamming that at the doors. Yeah. Anyway, but RE1.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah.
RE1 was my first. Loved it.
It's a good one. I mean,
and I think is still my favorite.
Really?
I love RE1. There's something, I feel like the scares aren't cheap in RE. There's not a lot of jump scares. It does tension so well because the manor is so quiet. But then as you open up certain doors and as you get certain items, things change. You have the dogs kind of coming in, and you have, you know, the lizards coming in at one point. Like you can feel the tension. You're like, oh, things are happening. Do I pick up this item? I don't want to, because I'm gonna get scared shitless, and things change based off of what you're doing in the game. Anyway, huge fan. Love it.
No, I totally hear you. I think it was really RE4, like, and I've talked about this like in other talks I've given at conferences and everything, about how like RE4 killed the quiet moment in horror games by introducing quick time events mid cutscene. it really popularized that strategy. And it basically meant that you never got to relax ever, which previously, like Resident Evil had also pioneered with the save rooms, right? And everything like that. So that kind of killed the quiet moment as a whole. But I think they tempered those out really well in the remake of RE4. But like, I agree that the scares in general aren't cheap. My favorite RE game is the RE2 remake from 2019,
So good.
I think.
So good.
Favorite one, hands down. It does such a good job of just stressing you out. You're just stressed out. Like,
yep.
It's so good.
I love being chased. I love that as a gameplay mechanic. I love being chased and turning around and then screaming and waking up my neighbors at 11 p.m.
It's great. Like, as a narrative designer as well, like, I love the idea that in like Leon A, Claire B, and Claire A, Leon B, like the dialogue is different. Like it's literally like 4 different games, essentially. They do such a good job with that. And it feels like fresh, even though you know what's gonna happen. Really smart. I'm just also really normal about the character of Sherry Birkin. Don't need to like psychoanalyze that at all. Yeah, it's just a good series. I love it. It's basically so like, hey guys, what if the entanglement of corporations and the government is bad? What if that's bad? Like really bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like that gets missed sometimes.
But it's the through line. It's the narrative through line throughout the entire series, including like I've told you this before, but I'm a Revelations 1 apologist. Like
yes.
That's my hot take is that I'm a Revelations 1 apologist. I don't know why. I couldn't even tell if you told me to summarize that game, I couldn't tell you what the story is of that game. Honestly, I don't really understand it.
It's a vibe, okay?
I don't.
The story is a vibe.
But there were certain things that I think really stand out in Revelations 1, like when you're on the ship, and it's so funny because like also a secondary through line in the series is that Chris is just missing the entire time. So Chris Redfield is missing yet again, and you're Jill on this like really creepy ship, and the way that they animate it, like the animation team and mocap team deserve so much praise because the way that they animated common enemies in that game was so creepy.
Yeah.
But so well done. And it's like, anyway, Revelations 1. I don't know. Do you have any RE hot takes?
Ooh. Let's see. Most of my like hot takes are probably not even like that hot of takes. My spiciest take is that I don't think that Ethan should have been the next protagonist of the series. As I mentioned, I'm really normal about Sherry Birkin, and I think that Sherry should actually have been the next protagonist. I thought they set that up really well, and then they didn't do it, and I was very confused by that. It would make sense though, right? Like we've seen her grow up, and then it would be like the passing of the torch to that next generation. My other hottest take is that the most unrealistic thing in Resident Evil 7 isn't even the mold. It's not even the mold. It's not the mind control. It's that a house in Louisiana would have a basement. Because
that's going over my head, but
it wouldn't. I lived in the South, so like
there you go. Yeah, you know.
That is the least, like, instantly takes me out of immersion.
This is why Capcom needs to hire you so that you can tell them that a basement is not realistic in that geography, you know?
It just wouldn't. It would be flooded. Like the water table's so high. Like anyway, I said it before. I'll say it again. It should not have a basement. Like I loved RE7, but I do think that the next protagonist should have been Sherry. Personally, like I said, I'm an Aeon truther. Sorry to the Cleon shippers. Let's see. Oh, and we've talked about this, Marina. I would do anything for a Code Veronica remake.
Oh my god, I want that game so bad.
I do too.
I want to
up for it, and then it just never.
I thought so too. I thought so because it's like we got 2 remake, we got 3 remake. I was like, surely Code Veronica's next. Surely.
I know.
Chat's like, yeah,
Chat's
I think
popping
chat
off.
wants it
I
too.
know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I
I want a
know.
Code Veronica remake so bad. But I told you this when I was watching the RE9 trailer.
Yeah.
When they said Ashcroft, I heard Ashford, and I
I
was
heard
like, "Oh
Ashford.
my god,
I
Code
was like,
Veronica sequel!"
they're doing it. Yeah. I was so ready. I was so ready. And then it was like, oh, it's
Yeah,
Ashcroft. Code Veronica, like,
the game is so good.
it's so good, and I feel like people underestimate it a lot. It's like
Mhm.
it's like the Fallout New Vegas of the Resident Evil series. Okay, you can quote me on that. Because yeah, it's like we're gonna do this fun, like it's a side game, right? But it's also doing like its own really cool stuff. We get to learn more about Claire. Like it, really good,
Also,
really
Chris
really
is
good.
missing.
Chris is missing again. This man missing in action. Yeah, I would also really love to see. I've talked about this online a lot. I would love to see a game with Ada as the protagonist.
Oh, me too. I would
Come,
love that.
Capcom, call us. Call us, Capcom. I think that'd be insane.
We'll make
I
it. We'll
would.
work on it. Yeah, I think
I'll
that would
do
be
it.
so good. That'd be
It
so.
would
I
be
love
awesome.
Ada. Huge fan.
What are your
What
hot takes? Sorry, unless you wanna.
I think my hot take is just that I'm a Revelations 1 apologist. I don't know if I
Oh
have
yeah,
any other like really hot takes. Because I feel
valid.
like no one really talks about Revelations 1 and 2. 2,
No.
I wouldn't want to replay, to be candid, but um what was funny about 2 is that if you play it co-op, which I did, one person gets to play as Natalia, and
Oh yeah.
your whole mechanic is bricks. So you pick up bricks, and it's like the power of bricks, and you just throw bricks. Yeah, I don't know if I I don't know if I have any other hot takes. Well, maybe. Well, I didn't really like Ethan as a protagonist. I RE7 and 8 were great,
They were.
but I didn't have a fondness for Ethan in the way that, like, spoilers for Resident Evil Village for everyone, in the way that when you play as Chris in Resident Evil Village, oh my god, that was the coolest moment ever. And you can
Yeah.
feel how much more powerful you are too. Like, I feel like they did that really well. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm an Ethan hater. I'm definitely a Mia hater. I didn't like Mia at all. But I didn't have a fondness for Ethan in the way that, like, I love Ada, I love Leon, I love Claire,
Jill.
Chris. It's that Jill, like, yeah, which I think is so interesting because
Mhm.
like the stories are so character driven.
They are, but I feel like they tried to keep Ethan to a certain extent as more of a self-insert. And maybe
Mm,
like they didn't even show his face for the longest time.
mm,
Like, and I think that was probably deliberate. And that's fine, but it also meant that we had this distance from our own player character that meant we couldn't necessarily connect with him, except that like, oh, I have a wife, I have a child, which is like, no, but like, who are you? Like, we want to
mm.
know who you are and your sense of humor. Like even those little things are what really gave such color to characters that were previous protagonists in that series that I would have loved to see with Ethan. Yeah, again, I'm not an Ethan hater, but I'm not like an Ethan lover. You know what I mean? Like I'm very lukewarm on Ethan. I agree.
Mm. But 7 was great. Like, 7 was a
Seven
phenomenal
was great. It was
game,
great.
and the twist at the end of 7 too, where you're like, you see the empty wheelchair and you're like, oh my god, and things kind of click, was done
Yeah.
really, really well, I think.
That was really good. The character designs in 7 were wild. I
Mm.
just 7 was wonderful. It was a really cool like return of the series, I feel
Mhm.
like. So I see like why that sort of kicked everything off.
What are some of your favorite narrative moments in the series? I feel like
Ooh,
there's some really good ones. There's a
there's
lot of
so
really
many
good
good
ones.
ones. I think one of my favorites is probably in the RE2 remake on Claire's story, where like everything is already melting down, like it's toward the end, and like Sherry, you like Annette is dying, she's been shot, Sherry is like mid transformation, and Annette is able to like save her with the antiviral and all of that. But there's this really nice moment between these three women that are trying to survive in the aftermath of a disaster caused by not even them, right? They're in this disaster because of their relationships to the men in their lives, right? Like, because Claire's there because of Chris. Annette, her husband, caused all of this, and Sherry, you know, William is her dad. So they are just in this aftermath of these dudes messing everything up. And yet there's like a camaraderie between the three of them in that. And like, as Annette is with Sherry, and there's that moment where Claire like gets on a lift to go fight William, where she's like, no, you be with your daughter. I got this. And I just love that. I think it's so often in games, like, women are pitted against each other, like women characters, especially in horror. And so to see that camaraderie across multiple generations of women was like really, really cool.
I never even put that together, but yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's so good. Claire's story is, I love Leon. I love him.
Love Leon.
Like, little, you know, meow meow, etc. But I love that one. And my other favorite
Did you say
one.
meow meow?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Yes. Meow meow. And then I think my other one is in, oh yeah. So there's this moment in Resident Evil 4 that I found totally on accident in the remake that I absolutely loved. And it's when you're playing as Ada, and you're around the church, you can get up on the roof, on like a sort of balcony on the roof. And if you listen really closely by the window, you can hear Ashley crying.
I didn't find that.
Yes, it totally was. I didn't even mean to. I was just going up there. So Ada has this like unspoken moment between her and Ashley where she is outside on the roof. And you can hear Ashley crying because she's trapped inside the church. And it's just this unspoken, silent moment between these two women who are also trapped by the narrative, right? Like, Ashley's literally trapped. Ada is trapped by, you know, her career and like the web of intrigue that she's inherently a part of. And I just love it. It's those kinds of little quiet moments that, like, as a game writer, as a narrative designer, they just make my heart sing. So good.
Yeah, that's really good. I missed that.
It's good.
That's really good.
What about you? Do you have any favorites?
I'm going to reiterate the Heisenberg calling Chris a boulder punching asshole. I thought that was excellent. I love that so much, because I was like, wait, it's canon, was my initial reaction. But
how did he know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, how? There must be some report of Chris punching a boulder somewhere that Heisenberg somehow got his hands on.
You know?
There's no other explanation.
Yeah.
How does he know? I just thought that was great because in this, like, what does he know? Heisenberg knows everything. But it's after this like really kind of creepy production facility that you're in, and it's like very claustrophobic, and then the boss battle is like, you know, a lot more open, and you're fighting Heisenberg, and Chris blows up the production facility, and Heisenberg goes, you know, he calls Chris a boulder punching asshole, and I thought that was excellent. Like, that was just it was great. I love that. Because after like being scared and then being like, do I have enough health to survive this? Am I gonna be able to do this? I don't want to have to go back. Like, when did the game last save? You get this like moment of you get this moment of laughter and lightness, which I love, like when horror does that kind of contrast. I love that. I thought Leon's transformation that we see, especially at the beginning of RE4 Remake, was fascinating to witness, because as you play him in RE2, he's this like really naive, kind of straight out of school, straight out of training, you know, like he's so, you can tell that he's so young and new to the world, and is driven by the ideals that he has, but hasn't been in the real world yet to see what things are really like. And so I feel like he becomes this like very sarcastic, jaded character in 4. And you see like the ruthless, rigorous training that he had to endure in order to get there. I thought that was just a very interesting arc to see. And then, you know, you play as Leon and you can tell that you're more powerful. And then I love the small moments between Ada and other characters, like whether it's Ada and Luis or Ada and Leon. Like I love I love Ada. I'm a huge Ada Wong fan. Love Ada.
So
Need
true.
an Ada game. Need more Ada.
Need more
Just
Ada.
the small kind of vulnerable real moments that you see with Ada and other characters where you're like, oh, okay. You kind of start to wonder, like, well, Ada, what are you doing this for? Like you're kind of painted as this like very gray, morally gray character. There's, as you said, like, you know, there's a lot of intrigue around Ada, but you can really see her humanity in a lot of you know, the situations that she maybe against her own will, maybe not, you know, she finds herself in. And I think it just adds to the whole mystery of Ada, because one can like just be like, oh, well, Ada's just meant to be a baddie. And it's like, well, actually, no, like she's clearly, there's so much more to Ada's story.
Yeah, there's multiple opportunities where like she could have done things that she didn't, or she didn't have to do things and she did, you know? So it's like, there's definitely complexity and depth to her. We love her.
She didn't have to help Leon. She didn't have to save Leon.
She didn't.
Many times. Like, she didn't.
No.
Didn't. Before we wrap up, can we please talk about RE9?
I would love to.
Freaked out watching that trailer. But I freaked out for the wrong reason. I freaked out because I heard Ashford, not Ashcroft.
No, I was right there with you.
I was like, why is no one screaming? Like, have none of you played Resident Evil? What's going on? You know, like
yeah. I'm really curious in the angle that we're going back to like Raccoon City. We don't know a whole lot about the story yet, but I'm very intrigued by that. So I'm really curious where they plan to take it. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that we're going to play as Leon at some point. And I know that Capcom has been like, no one wants to play as a scared Leon. I want to play as a scared Leon. I want to play as Leon.
I want to see
Leon's
him.
the best.
I want to see him terrified and covered in blood. Yes. We all do.
Yeah, we all want to play as Leon. That's what we want. But also, I could have sworn that you can hear Chris in one of the scenes. It's embarrassing how many times I've watched that trailer, but
really, okay.
When they start talking about the line is something along the lines of like, you haven't seen the shit that I've seen. And I'm like, that's Chris. And then I went back to his dialogue in 8 and I was like, that's Chris. But also actually, the thing that I am most interested in, I loved the ending of 8. I loved that, you know, Chris is a part of this like maybe rogue squad, maybe not a part of the BSAA anymore. Like what happened there, we don't really know. And then the BSAA sent bioweapons in to clear the village and to do who knows, right? And it ends with Chris saying chart a course to BSAA Europe, which is a nice little callback to RE3 when you're reading lore. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, BSAA Europe seems to be more responsible than BSAA in the US. So I just thought that was interesting. But like, I have been like holding on to that for you know, a while now. And I want to see what that means. And I hope we get something.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Chris, because I felt like for the longest time they were going to bring him back. Leon's already had a lot of screen time recently. Like, I mean, never, not that I'm ever going to complain about Leon Kennedy on screen, but like, I'm like, they're going to bring back Chris, right? At some point. So I would love to see that. I think that would be cool. I'm just fascinated about this like new protagonist that they have, and like how she fits into all of it. But I agree. I definitely think that Chris is up to something, whether he's in like a rogue squad or even just like a special ops or like covert ops group. I think that would be I think it'd be really cool.
I'm just gonna thank Lana for the raid. Thank you so much for the raid. Hi Lana, hi raiders.
Hello. Yay!
Hello. Thank you so much. How was your stream? How was your stream? What were you working on? We did a 1-hour 3D composition challenge. Ooh, as someone who knows nothing about 3D and am constantly just in awe of people who are able to work in 3D, whether it's Blender or otherwise, or in engine or animating 3D objects, like hell yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, shall we move into the Q&A then?
Sure, let's do it.
Can we wrap it up? Can we just put a bow onto just the VOD?
Sure.
What advice would you give your younger self? I really like asking this question. It's become a bit of a habit, but I really like the insights that come out of it before we open up the Q&A.
I think the number one thing that everyone wants to like hear from a grown-up when they're little is like, it's going to be okay, but not as like a, like, oh, it'll be fine, but like a, I understand that things may feel very chaotic, but like, I promise you that things do work out. Even just like that kind of a message. I know like from myself and my own kind of chaotic background and upbringing, just reaching out, if I could, I would love to reach out to like a younger me and be like, it is going to be okay, because it is. Like I've worked really hard and I've overcome a lot of stuff. And I think that all you really want sometimes is just that, like, just that reassurance, I think. And also to know that like, you're not going to be an opera singer and actually you're going to be happy about that. You know what I mean?
That's a big one though. That is a big one.
Yeah.
Thinking that you want to do something and you end up doing something else and you wonder, is it going to work out? Am I going to be happy?
Yeah. No, it's like, actually, it's like, I think a lot of the time, like, even in terms of like, is it going to be okay? Even like, maybe sometimes it'll be okay. And maybe sometimes it won't be okay. It'll actually be even better than you thought. That kind of message, because I know past Anna, like, I think a lot of people who work in the arts have felt, you know, lost at some point, and they just want to know that things are going to work out. You end up landing where you should. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. Anna, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for all your wisdom and advice. And for everyone who's here, for anyone who's watching the VOD, thank you for being here. And as always, our socials will be in the description if you'd like to follow us on social media. And if you have any feedback or topics you'd like to see covered in the future, let us know. Thank you again. Let's open it up.
Thanks for having me.
Let's do it. Thanks for coming on.